Hello and welcome to the Business of Government, a monthly podcast about the challenges and opportunities that face leaders in the public sector. Today, I want to talk about how the public and private sectors work together and communicate, and sometimes how they don't. And to guide that conversation, I am thrilled to have two pros with me. One is Marlisa Briggs, the president of the North Houston Association. The other is our friend Kiley Holbrook, Director of Consulting Services here at Weaver. Welcome, both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Absolutely.
Marlisa, I want to start with you. You run an organization that impacts quality of life for millions of citizens.
Millions.
Tell us a little about the role of the North Houston Association and what you're all about.
Sure, absolutely. So we were created in 1982. And we were created by a group of developers. And they said, we've got chambers of commerce in this area, do a fabulous job. But what we're missing is kind of a regional voice to look out for development. They've got the small businesses covered with the chambers, but we're talking about quality development. And so they created the North Houston Association. And in the beginning, it was limited to just developers. No one else was allowed in. And
that sounds dangerous.
It sounds like developers in the 80s, right? It's like just us. Just us. And at the time, there really weren't a whole lot of those folks. Sure. Primarily Friendswood Development, which later became Exxon Land Development. And of course, the big giant, right? Howard Hughes. So those kinds of folks. And then they said, okay, we will let in the people that do business with those developers, and the engineers flooded in. So as you would expect, and other industries too, but lots of engineers. So that's when they all came on board and decided that they wanted a part of the organization in a sense. So as we've grown and developed, we have a transportation committee, we've got a water committee, a development committee, and an environment committee. So those are kind of our four areas of focus. We work on advocacy for regional infrastructure. And along the way, we also do a good bit of educating. And I'm sure we'll get to this, but a lot of the education, really it's it's both ways. Sometimes it comes from the public agency, letting the engineers and developers know what is coming, what they're going to be needing. And then sometimes it goes the other direction too, in terms of here's some best practices for your projects. So it kind of goes both ways. So that is who we are. We're membership based, and we're an advocacy group.
You're taking an innovative approach to a dynamic and growing metropolitan area, which I find interesting. Yeah. So I want to throw out something to you. If we sat down and drew a Venn diagram of business interests and government interest in any particular community, there's a big overlapping section in the middle: infrastructure, public safety, education, sort of the fundamentals. There's some disconnects: permitting, red tape, lack of services, lack of infrastructure. So what are the keys to building productive relationships between business and government?
Right. Well, I think when you talk about that, there's really two different areas. There's all those technical conversations that happen, and then there's the non-technical. And I personally find that those non-technical conversations are almost, if not more important than the technical ones. And what I mean by that is we build into every time we gather, it's always about a particular topic.
Right.
And so all of those who are coming to attend that particular meeting have that in common, right? They have in common this one particular focus, whatever the speaker is coming to talk about, whether it be flooding, whether it be roads. And once they get there, though, we always build in about 30 minutes or so for just talking. Kiley has been to many of those meetings. And that's where those non-technical conversations happen that I think lay the groundwork for a lot of kind of thinking from the other person's perspective. So they get to know each other. I hear conversations about pets, kids, hobbies. Yes, I spent my whole weekend at a band competition. All of those things, and so it kind of lets people's guards down a little bit. And then I think when we start talking about maybe something that is an obstacle, then they already have gotten to know each other as people. Our committees meet once a month, but that's 4 committees. So, and our schedules sometimes vary. So we have anywhere from 3 to 4 committee meetings a month. So some of these folks attend at least 50% of those meetings. So they have come in contact potentially with each other 2-3 times a month. So they've really kind of gotten to know each other. And then I think you can see that we have a lot of things in common, a lot more in common than they originally thought when they first met the person. And I think that helps break down those barriers. And then they realize, look, we're really here all for the same purpose. We all want good communities. We all want, yes, you may work for the government, but you also are a taxpayer. So you're going to want your dollars to go and be used wisely as well. So I think, just getting to know each other on that just basic human level is really important.
And it's harder and harder in a constantly plugged in world.
It is.
Kiley, you've worked with in county government in some very key positions. You've also worked in private business you've had contact with huge corporations. You're a CPA. What happens when business priorities conflict with public policy goals? And what are the keys to sort of regaining balance and fostering a productive dialogue, in your opinion?
Sure. The conflict it's inevitable, but it's sometimes misconstrued. It's not always conflict. Sometimes it's just these competing priorities, but they just need to be aligned. And that alignment is actually easier to accomplish than people may think. And so I think the breakthrough for businesses to reach government, where they're at with whatever projects they have, or whatever outcomes that they want to accomplish alongside government. The breakthrough is really where they find where that alignment is, and they do that together. When I came to consulting, one of the things I always ask myself, in the lens I sort of put on every one of the conversations I have is we have this task, or we have this goal. How do we accomplish this together? And you're dealing with the responsibility to the taxpayers over here, and you're dealing in the private space with the need to make a profit, and pulling those together to serve the communities is really finding where that alignment lies.
Marlisa, let's go a little further in that. Along those same lines, when we talk about major infrastructure projects, and you've been involved with them, transportation, flood control, mega developments, complex layers of funding and regulation, high financial stakes. It is nice to talk about personal things and gather, but at some point the rubber meets the road. How does your organization ensure that private sector input doesn't crowd out public accountability or long-term community needs? How do you strike that balance?
Well, I think that, any industry, right? Any firm, engineering firm, architectural firm, they're proud of what they do, or they wouldn't be successful. And of course, everybody wants to bring their A game. They're like, they want to bring the best, the fanciest, the most beautiful, the highest technology project forth. And this is our thing. Look at us, and while they want that, then there's the balance, again, of government. Government only has a certain amount of dollars. We all know that. So they understand that the engineering firms, the architectural firms, that there is a limited budget. And like one example, I volunteer for Klein ISD a lot in many different roles. But one of the things I've done is served on the bond committee.
Mm-hmm.
And it is incredible because you've got a certain amount of dollars, voters have approved it. And while you would love to bring all this high-tech fancy stuff forward, right? The reality is that schools are going to prioritize dollars on safety, security, and technology. And that ties back into safety and learning, right? That ties back into your technology, has many aspects of that. So they've got to prioritize those aspects because they know that the school board has to answer to that. They know that administration has to answer to that. And then they know the public also has an expectation of you're going to use our dollars wisely, not on the fanciest thing you can produce. So I have been amazed. There's I get to tour a lot of these renovated schools in Klein. I forget the number, but a large number of our schools have hit 50. And so they're going through, with the last bond, voters approved them methodically going through and just completely renovating these schools. And it has been really an amazing thing for me, a non-architect, a non-engineer, to take a tour through these schools. You've seen them before, you see them after, and some of the modifications that they make to make these schools look completely different, so much more inviting, so much more fun. One elementary school, they cut out holes in the walls of the library, circles, but they were deep enough for a elementary school kiddo to crawl in the hole and just kind of sit and read a book.
Marlisa, you're in the middle of one of the highest growth, most dynamic economies in the entire nation. So let's talk about the next 5 years. What are the biggest growth challenges facing Greater Houston, and how can local government and business find common ground to address some of those challenges?
More people, less money. I mean, that's the problem. That's the challenge, right? However we want to say it. Let's face it. Every time we hear the new numbers from Texas Comptroller's office, right? How many people are moving to Texas per day? I can't even wrap my head around the numbers. I think the last one I heard was just under 1,500 a day. And I think that has risen from about 1,100. And it is incredible to me. That's our challenge. I wish I had an absolute solution, but when you think about it, first of all, the number of people that come into Texas, we've got a governor who has set us up to be very business friendly. And that is what he is known for year after year after year, gets awards for that. So we have got that reputation, and it's not a bad one. We are happy to have the businesses come in and flourish and just kind of plant their flag here and call Houston their home. We've got everything from top medical, we've got incredible developments. And then in terms of housing, we've got everything from apartments to you go out to the suburbs and have all of these large communities that are kind of their own. You don't even have to leave some of these communities. Right. And you could even work, there's office space and all of that, lots of business centers throughout the whole region. So we've got all of those wonderful amenities that everybody wants to come to. But most of my area and this high growth area that we are currently in, they're outside of the city limits. So with that comes challenges in that people, especially from outside of Texas, they don't understand how county government works. Kiley has worked for county government multiple times and has lots of experience in this. But people, their expectation a lot of times is that a county is going to give you what a city is supposed to provide.
Right.
So and they're not supposed to. That is not what counties are set up to do, the county government in Texas. Primarily supposed to focus on infrastructure, safety, all of those matters. They don't have the budgets to handle things like childcare subsidies and social programs. They are not set up for that. So that is our big challenge. What is interesting is I have had this conversation about what to do. The largest population is the area that is least supported in that
Right.
sense financially, unless they are in a special district or a TERS, or like the Woodlands Township has their own township. They've created their own government structures, but that's not the majority. And I've had this conversation with lots of current electeds, lots of former electeds, people who really, they have been at the state level, they have been federal. Nobody has the answer. I'm sorry to say, but I have been advised, and today is another step of that. Keep talking, keep the conversation going, because eventually someone will come, all the right brains will come together and y'all will figure it out. So we really try to keep that conversation going. What will that look like? Is it a new, because no one wants more government. That's just, nobody wants more red tape and more hoops to jump through. But how else are the growing areas, how are they supposed to support all of the needs in their communities? So I don't have an answer for it, but I do believe that is going to continue to be our biggest challenge as we move forward, because it's going to impact everyone.
Well, maybe Kiley has an answer.
Yeah,
Kiley, the book on Texas is you can come here, you can get a job, you can raise a family, you can buy a home. And that's not true of every place in the country. And developers, as Marlisa noted, break the bonds of city government, right? Governance becomes a problem when you're in an unincorporated area. What advice would you particularly give to local government officials who view business input as primarily self-interested?
Mm-hmm.
You're dropping in, you're developing without regard for how you're impacting quality of life. And on the flip side, what advice do you have for business leaders who want to engage constructively in public policy without being adversarial? Because Marlisa has described sort of an adversarial conflict.
Sure, yeah. So I think for governments, and I've seen this firsthand, they need to recognize that business is self-interest. But it's what you do with it. Business is needed, private business is needed for, implementation capacity, having more people, having more budget, having these creative minds, subject matter experts that are not at the county or city level. These people are needed in this big mix of us serving the community. And then for businesses on the other side, they need to know that when they do approach government, they need to approach it with the public in mind. And so when the two of them come together, it's more of a collaboration. And I think that's a big theme of this podcast, is bringing these together and having them have this single alignment. So talking about the ISDs and having an alignment behind safety and security and having capacity and things along those lines.
I want to ask both of you the same exit question.
Okay.
And I'll start with Kiley. If you could change one perception on either side that stands in the way of better cooperation between business and government, what would you change? What do people get wrong?
So I see this more on the government side, but it definitely impacts obviously both sides. But it's that idea of that zero sum idea that if business thrives in these particular situations where they're collaborating, then government fails or government suffers. And then if government thrives, so government got what they want, if you will, the business suffered.
Right.
And that's fundamentally not accurate. I've seen many situations, and actually you can look at North Houston's most successful and quickest growing communities. And what you have is that collaboration between business and government more than not. And it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge to get there. It takes these meetings, these conversations, and it takes or organizations like the North Houston Association to help build the alignment between the two. And I also, as you know, my part of the exit here, it's organizations like the North Houston Association that are critical to these communities growing and building, and especially with some of the constraints and some of the challenges that we're facing today.
Good point.
Marlisa, same question. One perception you'd like to change about the relationship between business and government?
I think it's what seems to be more often than not, the whole government viewpoint, well, this is just how we do it. This is just how
it's my favorite.
We've always done it like this, right? And I know that's easy. Like it's easy in the sense of, this is my job, this is what I do, this is how we do it, and we're done. But I think if the government entities will just pause for a minute and make the effort to hear from the private sector. And I'm not talking about, let's have a public meeting where 6 people come, right? Those
Sure.
are necessary, they're required, they check the box, but not really at those public meetings. For the most part, you're gonna have the grumpy people, and then you're going to have the consultants who want to do the work. And then me,
Right.
usually. It's not many people, not many of us there. But I think, I don't know how other than, at our meetings, we do provide that environment. But I think if the government side would stop and just take a pause and take a note from the private sector, from those people who put the holes in the libraries to make them fun, the little nooks for the kids to read, right? Stop and take a moment and think about, how can I do this project in a way that doesn't look like government did it, that kind of looks like it was a private sector project. I think that if they will pause, they will have the opportunity to hear some wise counsel about how there can be a win on both sides, that innovation can happen and still be within your budget constraints. And then the community will be the one who is the winner in the end.
Fantastic summation. Marlisa Briggs, Kiley Holbrook, it has been a great conversation. I appreciate both of your viewpoints. Thank you for being here today.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks.
And we have come to the end of another episode of The Business of Government, a monthly podcast about the challenges and opportunities that face public sector leaders. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, please reach out to us. Until next time, I'm Adam Jones.